Is it
It's
excitement?
fun, yeah. It's fun knowing that. I mean, we're racing everybody out there, but I feel like I don't know what their approaches are necessarily, but trying to be smart about it, stay aggressive, earn points, but keep in mind, that there's a balance. We want to go out here and win races, but we don't want to throw away a second or third place finish, kind of like I did earlier in the year with racing against Busher. I made my mistake there. Just trying to keep that in mind. So I think it's been good for me. In my past, in NASCAR, I feel like when points have mattered and haven't been buried in the standings and just only worried about wins, it's been good for me as a driver. So it's really cool that we've climbed out of the hole that we were in to start this year, and we're now out there battling with those guys.
And what has been that main focal point to climb out of that points hole?
I mean, we weren't even really thinking about it, and then about a month and a half ago, it started getting more and more and more realistic. So it's really cool to see that climb and us continue to improve.
I mean, you look at Michigan in particular, obviously statistically not a track.
Yeah, that's crazy. I saw that. Yeah.
But in terms of with the regular season championship and this track, is it just driving as usual for you, or is there more of a mentality of, okay, I have to fight this track and the regular season championship as well?
Yeah, I think me and the next gen car have had some pretty tough luck, tough situations happen. I recall it pretty clearly, racing around the 4 car. I think even being ahead of him at one point 2 years ago here. We had our electrical failure on the engine side and fall out of the race, and 4 wins it. It's like, damn, we were right there with him all day long. And then obviously last year, save more fuel than the 17, come to pit road, pass him on pit road, leave pit road. Race is done, right? Unless there's a caution. We had our issue with the record. So, yeah, statistically it hasn't been great for me, but I feel like every time I've come here, the speed has always been there. We haven't been able to put the race together yet.
Thank you.
You've been involved in close finishes before in your career. When you are going, there's the one to go, and you are going for the close finish, at what point are you making that decision on what is the line, so to speak?
Well, it's different for everybody, but you're never going to right hook somebody to win a race. That's for sure.
All right. And then your boss, Denny, obviously was involved at Richmond. Bubba, beneficiary of the penalty. Was the atmosphere any different in the shop this week, or still business as usual?
I think it could have went either way, and it wasn't going to affect the 23's mindset. So they're in a good spot there. They've been running really solid over the past 5 weeks. I mean, they've been one of the strongest teams consistently speaking. So both of us have been. So I think it's going to take a lot more than that to deter the mindset of 2311.
All right. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
It happens very easily, and it not be a whole planned out lot of intent. It's the heat of the moment, trying to get to the line and beat the guy. So sometimes it's okay to have a little space to figure out what's what, and look at data, and look at video, and look at all the things, and then it's a big decision in our sport, right? If I don't want to say there's drawing a line in the sand, but it's a big moment that people are going to talk about and remember in the future, and it will set some precedence on what's going to be allowed. So you don't want somebody to rush to that either way. So I think it went good. I didn't think that they would take the win away there, because it's not something that they typically do. But reviewing it and going, hey, that was probably too far, and adjusting accordingly, I think is fine.
Daytona's not the cutoff race this year, but
close to it.
Close to it,
Yeah.
but 5 of the last 7 Daytona winners have won to get into the playoff.
Yeah.
Do you think that's probably your best shot in terms of winning that race?
For sure. I think that, it's one that we feel like is a good shot for us, but it's a good shot for a lot of people too, right? I mean, if you just look at the field and you look at some of the guys that have to make it, it's a good race for Bubba. It's a good race for Ross. It's a good race for a lot of guys that are right on that line and flirting with it. And depending on what happens in the next few weeks, right? You throw Busher in that mix too. There's guys that could potentially win in this weekend, and then that changed that whole dynamic again, right? So like we saw with the 3, right? It's 3-1, and then all of a sudden that cutoff looks a lot different. So yeah, I think it's our best chance, but we have we've had fast cars a lot of places, so I don't feel like it's our only chance.
Well,
Thanks,
Michael.
Michael.
Thank you. Yeah, Michael. At this time last year, you had a couple of wins, and then this year, obviously, you got a win to get in.
Yeah.
This is a Ford track.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's
And
fun.
I bet that's a big thing that you circle on. I'm sure this race is circled for you to potentially have a top finish or a win.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, there's a lot of pride that goes into this race from a manufacturer standpoint, and I know there's a lot of pride and energy that goes into this race from the Roush Yates Engine Shop and Doug Yates and his group too, and they've been working hard this season, and we've seen the Fords get definitely more competitive over the last month and a half, 2 months. Seeing the speed that Blaney and Keselowski had at Indy, and obviously with Buescher winning here last year, there's a lot of confidence that we can get a Ford in victory lane. So, yeah, I feel like this is a good weekend for us.
Michael, I want to go back to the penalty just real quick, just because I know your Truck Series teammate Lane Riggs was penalized 2 laps at Nashville for rough driving for something that was arguably less egregious than what we saw on Sunday.
But a different scenario. So, I mean, that's what's so hard about racing. It's so subjective. So, I watched Lane's situation live, right? And those guys were beating and banging and dooring each other and running up the racetrack. The problem is that it just went on for lap after lap after lap, and they don't know it, right? But they're the show, they're the spotlight, right? And so it's not the last lap, last corner, last ditch effort. It went on and on and on and on, and there was plenty of time to say, all right, enough's enough, and we're going to diffuse this. Kind of like we saw with Ross and Denny at Gateway a couple years ago, right? Like, just went on and on and on and on. So, different situation. And also, too, like, yes, NASCAR is the same, but different race directors, different officials. And I don't want to say it's a different conduct, but it is. I mean, the Cup Series is the premier series. There's a lot on the line, and not that the trucks aren't, premier series, but you got rookie guys in there, and I think that the way that they handle each situation is going to be a little bit different. So I'm not the guy that sits there and like, this consistency and precedence and all that, because racing's so subjective, right? I mean, it's just it's hard to judge intentionality, and so yeah, I think it's both are fine.
You mentioned obviously different series, different race directors. If NASCAR as a whole uses the lower series to get a hold on what is the line, as we talked about, do you think that would help down the road when they move up to race on Sundays, the cleaner racing? You think that will help that?
Yeah, for sure. And I hear a lot of conversation too about that trickling down to short track racing and late models and all the series. And I didn't grow up in that scene, in that world, so I don't know exactly how that affects it all. But I think that if you're a young kid and you have aspirations to go to NASCAR, you're watching us on Sunday, and how we race and how we go about our business, I think will affect how they view their career and what they're allowed to do and what they can do. So I think it has a correlation. So yeah, I think that there's something to learn with that.
Thanks, Michael. All right, Christopher. I guess we'll start with the obvious, the reaction to the penalty, and how do you think we keep talking about this line drawn in the sand or whatever.
Yep.
Do you think that there was a line that NASCAR set with that penalty? Do you agree with it, or do you think there's still a little bit of murkiness with it?
I'm happy. I'm happy that he, isn't in the playoffs, because I do think that what if they wouldn't have said anything, then it would have, opened the can of worms and saying, hey, anything goes. So I'm happy that they did, tell us that that's not going to be accepted.
I believe David Wilson came out today and said, or sometime this week, and said that there might be something found in the Toyota engines. Obviously, that's been a big thing the last month. Do you think that maybe that's going to turn the corner and you'll figure it out before the playoffs, or do you anticipate any? I know obviously you don't want any engine issues, but it's obviously been a concern. Do you think it's going to continue to be a concern, or do you think that there is a solution that's been found?
Honestly, I don't. I have no idea. I will just continue to focus on my job, and so I don't know. I mean, we never plan on failures, but I know that I have the best team working on their job while I work on my job, and I have faith that we'll be in good shape.
Had your path ever crossed with? Did you ever cross paths with Scott Holmquist?
No,
Okay,
I never did.
Different forms of racing and stuff. So,
Yeah.
What do you look at for this weekend, and what's kind of on your mind before you get out of the trucks?
I mean, Michigan has been a really good racetrack for me since we've been here in the next gen cars. So I haven't finished well, but I performed really well. So it's certainly a place that hopefully we can, get a couple stage wins, maybe a race win. If not, just have a really good points day and finish a race. Out of the 2 next gen races, I've been really strong, but crashed in both of them. So need to finish a race here at Michigan, and I expect to have good performance in the car. So hopefully we can see the check flag.
Steven Stump of Frontstretch.com here. Come back for more great racing videos, and if you like us, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.